focused. I'm prepared. I'm ready. I've been trained by the best. I went to Howard University that overturned legal segregation in this country. I've been taught in those classrooms where Thurgood Marshall once taught. I'm not afraid of no president. Donald Trump, we're ready for you. We're coming for you. We're standing up for you. We're fighting on. We're not going down silent. Victory, my friends, is clear. It's now. And I'm not waiting 4 years. I'm waiting 2 until a speaker by the name of Hakeem Jeffries comes to bring us some rest. Come on, ladies. It's up to us. We saved this democracy before. We'll save it now. Let's go.
I don't know if that was hard for you, but it's hard for me. She was in my ear. I almost had to take this out. It's just so obnoxious. Joining me now, my buddy Mike Cernovich, filmmaker, author. Actually has another one coming, which I'm going to ask him about here in just a moment. Mike, on top of the fact she's obnoxious, what do you make of all this? She going down for mortgage fraud or something? What's happening with all this?
Yeah, everyone knows if you're conservative, filing for a mortgage application is very stressful because mortgage brokers would just throw in any kind of number and you have to say, no, you can't do this. You don't get me involved in some kind of nonsense because of your scummy agency. And with Letitia James, it was she, not the mortgage broker, who falsified data, allegedly, although it looks quite strong to me, in a mortgage application. There were multiple issues that could not be attributed to errors or that she couldn't blame the mortgage broker for. And now she is facing investigation for that, as she should.
Okay, Mike, you're a lot more well-versed in the law and most things than I am. What are we looking at here? Is she going to prison? Is she going to get a little $500 fine? What kind of charges are we looking at here for this stuff?
Well, they can, if you look at how they charge cases, these can be charged aggressively because they can be charged not just as mortgage fraud, but also money laundering. And if you look at how they charge the Trump cases, you can make it a very simple case that would plead down to a misdemeanor, or they could make it multiple felonies because the Dinesh case, I think, was illustrative. Dinesh was indicted for allegedly using straw donors to help a friend's campaign. And he said, I'm going to go to trial. So then what happened was the SDNY, under that really scuzzy guy, I forget his name, but he really is a real scummy lowlife guy. And then he refiled the case to say, well, because you use straw donors, you knowingly got someone to file a federal tax return that was false, and that's a mandatory minimum of 5 years. And that's why Dinesh ended up pleading guilty. So there are a lot of different ways that cases like these can be charged. Ordinarily, it would be a felony that you would plead down to a misdemeanor, and she would have to be disbarred because it would be considered a crime of moral turpitude since it was a financial fraud. So if I'm boring you, just interrupt me. But if you're a lawyer, you're not just subject to the criminal laws of the land, of course, but you're subject to state bar jurisdiction. So if you file a false mortgage application that isn't your mortgage broker doing funny business after you've filled it out honestly, then you would be guilty of a crime of moral turpitude because that would be financial fraud. And then, of course, you would be disbarred, although, as we've seen, states like California and New York and D.C. have a different set of standards for Democrat lawyers than for Republicans.
Yeah, what a shock. All right, I'm thrilled that at least one scumbag might be facing some form of justice, right? I'll take anything I can get at this point in time. What do you make right now of the job Pam Bondi, we're going to focus on her specifically, of the job she's doing? I'm not a lawyer. I'm doing the best I can to be patient. And I'm telling myself every night, Mike, when I go to bed, that she's just busy crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and government indictments are coming down soon. This government person's going to be arrested, and this government person's going to be arrested. That's what I tell myself so I can sleep at night, Mike. What do you think?
Well, I don't want to play the whole as a lawyer card because I never like to do that because I'm not Douglas Murray. But I'll say that as a lawyer, so it took you a second, you got that one. So as a lawyer with a fair amount of expertise on these issues, The issue that you have is, and Trump really had this problem in his first term, is all of the Department of Justice lawyers were pro-Biden regime. So Biden comes in, he has this fascist attorney general, and he's got all the line lawyers ready to file paperwork. Well, instead of those line lawyers properly enforcing the law under Bondi, they're sabotaging, they're slow walking. A bunch of them are resigning. They're all running to the New York Times and throwing tantrums. So they just don't have the manpower that you would think. Ed Martin, for example, is his nomination to U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia is being held up by Adam Schiff, a Russiagate collusion hoaxer. So if you're on the outside, you would say, my goodness, why is it that there were almost 100 J6ers already indicted at this time during Biden's administration, and we can barely get someone on a very clean case of mortgage fraud? And the answer is because every attorney hiring process starting under Barack Obama and the FBI and the DOJ was to get people into the Stasi. So they were all on board. They're ready to go. They're ready to frame people for crimes. And the Bondi administration is having trouble getting lawyers even confirmed to positions where they're needed. So this is not, I'm not a plan truster. I always tell people, go read what I had to say about Trump during his first term, because people even try to dig up tweets to like get one over on me. And I was like, oh no, I was very frustrated. I'm not a plan truster. But in this case, you have Bongino, you have Cash, and then you have everybody in there who's the Stasi. And if you look at, Christopher Wray bragged about it, I believe 40% of current FBI employees were hired during the Biden regime, right? It's going to take a long time to unravel this and find out who's good and who isn't. So I think people should continue being aggressive in a civil way about these issues, but I don't think it's fair to compare the timeline of the Trump second term with the Biden regime's first term.
Okay. That's fair. Is it reasonable to assume we will get these things at some point in the next 4 years, or is it too far gone, Mike? And I'm almost scared to ask the question because I'm afraid I think I already know what the answer is. Are there too many cancers in place to be removed?
The difficult question, and I think about this a lot too, is we're certainly not going to get what we want, but we're already getting things. Brian Otten, who would terrorize innocent Christian people. Chuck Grassley revealed him as one of the guys responsible for the Hunter Biden laptop cover-up scheme. He's been removed, so things are happening, but it's unfortunate that we're fighting personnel decisions that were a decade in the making. There are all these FBI agents and DOJ officials. Some of them have civil service protections, so you can't just come in and remove them. Judges are jamming everything up. So what we have to do is take the wins that we can, and we have to keep pushing. I do like the idea of impeaching judges, not because I think the Senate will convict them, because they absolutely will not, but because it'll give Congress jurisdiction to issue subpoenas. So if I'm you and I'm talking to Chip Roy and I'm talking to Britt, I'm just saying, like, in the hypothetical world, if I'm talking to these guys, I would say, look, we know the Senate's not going to convict Boasberg. We know this, but the only way that we can get jurisdiction and start issuing subpoenas to find out what is happening in that DC Stasi show trial Stalin fiefdom is to investigate impeachment, because then we have congressional oversight, we have congressional subpoena power. Then we can issue subpoenas to Judge Boasberg and say, how is it that these cases are randomly assigned, but you always seem to get them? Do you have the luckiest hand in the world? Should you start playing the lottery? Should you go to Vegas because you'd be a billionaire, become a stock trader? How is it that you're getting all these randomly assigned things? As of right now, no one has jurisdiction to demand answers. A Congress member, Jim Jordan or Chip Roy or somebody, can't just write a letter and get that information. But if there's an impeachment inquiry and there's a committee, that committee absolutely has jurisdiction, and they can start issuing subpoenas. And I can tell you that will put the fear of God into John Roberts and these DC judges. They will know that they have to respond to these subpoenas, or else the judges can be held in contempt by Congress. And then they can be indicted the way Steve Bannon was indicted for contempt of Congress. So we 100% what we need to do, the best thing we can do right now is say, look, we know the Senate, we know Mitch isn't going to convict any of these judges. Irrelevant. irrelevant. This is about Congress having jurisdiction and oversight and the power to start issuing subpoenas to get these judges under oath and to get this under control.
Who's Gonzalo Lira?
Great question. Apparently, nobody knows, because there was a guy who writes for The Atlantic, and he's always talking about how great Ukraine democracy is. And I go, well, what about Gonzalo Lira? And then he sanctimoniously says, well, how do you expect me to know about everybody? And then he said, I bet you that people at the Orange County shopping malls that you go to don't know who he is. Like, yeah, dumb, you're proving my point. You guys had a media blackout on Gonzalo Lira, and I consider Gonzalo Lira the litmus test for whether I consider someone to be a propagandist or a person who has a good faith debate with me about Ukraine, a good faith disagreement. You could say, as you and I could just say, hey, what was he doing going to Ukraine, making videos calling Zelensky a dictator, right? He's lucky he didn't get beat up, but then they killed him. They took him prisoner when he was trying to leave the country. This is all on video. And the Zelensky regime, the Ukrainians were so psychotic that instead of saying, thank goodness we got rid of this wacko, get him out of the country, what a problem, right? They instead decided to kidnap him, torture him, and kill him. And then, of course, when asked, they'll say he had a medical condition, when he would say, well, why didn't you get a medical treatment in the U.S.? So Gonzalo Lira is an American who made YouTube videos that the Zelensky regime didn't like. He was held in custody. He tried to leave the country when he was more or less told to by Ukrainian law enforcement, who said it would be a good idea if you kind of just disappeared. He tried to leave. He documented it all, and then he died in a hospital, a victim of torture of the Zelensky regime, the great democracy and our great Western ally.
Yeah, our good friends. Our good friends. Mike, what's this movie? Are you allowed to talk about it yet, or am I not supposed to ask? Yeah. I didn't text you beforehand, so yell at me if I'm not supposed to ask.
I'm working on two. Yeah, I'm working on two. Okay. One is still under wraps, but the big one we're doing is about the meaning of life. And it's called Meaning, one word. And it's about the meaning of life. We just spent 2 months in the Amazon looking at what might have been megaliths with Timothy Alberino, tracing the origin of humanity. We looked at some people doing ayahuasca, talked to ayahuasca people. We're going to churches. We're talking to people of all different kinds of life, and trying to make a movie, it's an ambitious project, is one way to put it. Causes me a lot of stress would be another way to put it. Like, oh, I'm going to make a movie about the meaning of life. What a doucheroni, right? My God, what a douche. Well, that's what we're trying to do, though.
Gosh, I want to go to the Amazon. Mike, I'll talk to you again soon, brother. Appreciate you. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.